Welcome, friends. Welcome, family. What's going on, Ma? You guys, welcome to another watch party on a Tuesday. What is it, July 15th? What's going on, you guys? Glad you guys could be here as, of course, you get here. You know, we did two of these yesterday. Do you guys know we did two of these yesterday? I jumped back on and did another story because I talked too much from noon to 1 o'clock. And I ran out of time. What can you do? But of course, it was more layers of the things that are going on with Jeffrey Epstein, which I know you guys haven't said it, but I'm getting this energy that you guys are a little bit tired of it. But that's what Donald Trump wants you to think. He wants you to be tired of these stories that actually implicate and show just how corrupt and cover up this administration has become, because they've kind of always been that way. What's going on, Dragon Shepherd? Greetings to you as well. Woozy 1967. What's up? Luke H. Cyberborg. I love that the dragons are showing up. I love that you guys are here. You guys are constant. There's an insatiable hunger for all of this news and talk that's coming from us. So I'm glad y'all are here. What are you crossing your fingers for there, Cyberborg? Cyborg, let me know. Christina Brown, as usual, good to see you. Sorry, you guys, you're not going to be catching my mother in here today. She has other things to do this morning. So, just going to leave us hanging like that. I feel you. Good to be here. I'm glad you're here, Allison Ald. Glad you're on time. There's stuff to talk about. There's just a quick poll, just quickly, because I'm curious, because there's offshoot and there's different kinds of discussions to be had about this topic that doesn't have nothing to do with politics, but it does have something to do with our society. How many of you guys actually watched Love Island? The viral sensation as it's being reported. How many of you guys watched that? I'm just curious. Yeah or no? Love Island, yes. Love Island, no. Started it and stopped it. I'm just curious because it's fascinating. I watched that show way back, like way back when it was just the UK version and then the Australian version. I watched that show like crazy. Maybe around pandemic time. I'm not sure if it's something I binged then, but there was a lot of binging of old school Love Islands, and I had left it alone. It was years ago. And then it just all started up again. And I'm curious who's on it, because there's stuff about what happened in this season that isn't based in the, oh, who fell in love and who didn't, but just more based in how our society responds to shows like that. And it seems to be a lot different than the way our society responds to shows like The Bachelor or what's the other one? The big one, Survivor. Those big reality shows, or Big Brother. Maybe those did go big and people talked about it. I don't know. I'm just very curious as to whether or not that one fully got the widespread, attention that it seems like it did. Some people heard about it, hadn't seen it. Oddly, I saw a news report about this Love Island season. There were actual watch parties, oddly, that we're having here. Watch parties at bars as people rooted on who they wanted to see win and what to happen and all that stuff. But I just don't know if you guys who come to here actually pay attention to that. Someone's daughters love it. I smoke and I know things says that no, my daughters love it. I just wonder if I bring it up, if you guys would have a big collective deep sigh, because it's interesting stuff, man. It's very interesting stuff, especially as people get kicked off that didn't get kicked off based off of the game or the show. More got kicked off because of their past social media posts. That's really the big part about this. And now that the season is over, I won't be doing any kinds of spoilers for anybody to see. So anyway, continue to tell me that. You guys reach out, let me know. Christina Brown says, I'm having a hard enough time finding love myself, but you say it's interesting. So, okay. Yeah, there's a million seasons of this show. It takes a long time to get through it too, because there's lots of episodes and they do a lot of mental mind games with these younger folks. It's all younger folks generally under 30. Pretty much under 30. You may get a 30-year-old in there every once in a while. So anyways, maybe you guys enjoy what we're doing here. So hit the like button, share the stream. Also, you guys, make sure you put on the notifications if you are subscribing. If you're not, what the hell are you doing? Let's hurry up and subscribe here, because we got things going on here at all times. And while you're subscribing, go over to JR Rated and do that. There might be something that pops up there every once in a while. I'm just saying, last night I did speak with an old friend, and we were supposed to talk and chat it up and go through some stories and just have a long form podcast. I did that last night with an old friend. I think you guys might know who he is. We'll start revealing those things, but that's only if you go over to the JR Rated YouTube channel and check that out. Pretty much, it'll be this week. You'll start getting clips from that. Okay, fine. I'm done. I just want to clear that up and, of course, ask about Love Island. Let's get started with the actual news that's going on today. tariffs are still on the docket, of course, as we talked about Epstein, and then this bill that's passed, which of course is directly connected to what they're doing with the economy, of course, with these tariffs. But sometimes these tariffs that Donald Trump is implementing have to do with his grudges and his buddies in other countries, and has nothing to do with the economy. So Kevin Hassett, one of the members of his trade and tariff team, I suppose, went on to embarrass himself another time, because he's done this so many times, about their opportunities to screw things up. Let's get this done. Well, where is it, brother? There it is. Let's go.
Data.
Well, as you know, a lot of economists say that the inflation will be coming, and that there were certainly a lot of imports that were brought in the anticipation that tariffs would be placed. But let me ask you about one new set of tariffs that he announced on Brazil. 50% new tariff on Brazil. Brazil had a $6.8 billion surplus last year. In fact, the U.S. hasn't had a trade deficit with Brazil since 2007. I mean, almost 2 decades. So why are we putting a punishing 50% tariff on Brazil?
Well, bottom line is the president has been very frustrated with negotiations with Brazil, and also with the actions of Brazil. In the end, though, we're trying to put America first. I think that a lot of people, when I'm talking to negotiators from other countries, at some point they'll say, "What did we do wrong?" And what I'm trying to get, the message we're all trying to get across, is this is about America getting itself ready for the golden age by getting our house in order, by getting our tariff and trade policy and tax policy exactly where it needs to be for a golden age. And normally it's not necessarily about a specific country, but with Brazil it is. Their actions have shocked the president at times, and he's made them clear about that.
But I don't understand how you're saying it's about America, because the president has made it quite clear that what he's upset about is how the Brazilian Supreme Court has handled the criminal case involving former President Bolsonaro.
I'm agreeing with you. What I'm saying is that what I've been saying with most countries was that it's really about us getting the tariffs in order. And I think that this tariff for Brazil is a lot higher because of the president's frustration with Bolsonaro. The fact that Bolsonaro himself, anyway.
But can you explain to me, because I find it confusing here, on what authority does the president have to impose tariffs on a country because he doesn't like what that country's judicial system is handling a specific case?
Well,
I mean, how
if
is
he
that?
thinks it's a national defense emergency, or if he thinks it's a national security threat, that he has the authority under IEPA.
So how is it a national security threat that, how Brazil is handling a criminal case against its former president?
Well, that's not the only thing. That's not the only thing. I mean,
so what is it? I mean, I've asked what it is. I mean, it seems that that's what President Trump's talking about. He's talking about his anger and his frustration. He's been quite candid about it with the Bolsonaro case.
Right. Well, the bottom line is that what we're doing absolutely collectively across every country is we're onshoring production in the U.S. to reduce the national emergency that is that we have a massive trade deficit that's putting it at risk should we need production in the U.S. because of a national security crisis. And this is part of an overall strategy to do that.
But again, as we've just established, we have a trade surplus with Brazil, not a deficit. And we've had a surplus with Brazil for 18 years.
There's really nowhere for him to go. Did you guys hear an answer anywhere in Kevin Hassett's response and back and forth with John Carl, who did an excellent job, by the way, finally asking questions until he doesn't get the answer, or it's very clear that this guy doesn't have one, or the ones that he has don't make any sense? I think it was pretty clear, and it went long. I wanted to let that whole thing roll because you have to see how far and how desperate these guys are to make sure that they cover and make sure this comes off as completely different than what it really is. So in case you guys hadn't heard, one of those new countries that Trump threatened a new tariff on, up to 50% on Brazil, is not based in all the things that they keep talking about. Bringing manufacturing back to the United States, bolstering our economy, bringing in all this money, which, by the way, isn't even true. But none of that has to do with a country that has a surplus, a trade surplus with the United States. I thought he's going after all the countries that made it so unfair for the United States to do business. It's not the case here. And of course, Hassett then has to admit some of those points, because he did have to point out, well, he's unhappy with the way that they're doing things in that country. Who the hell made you the president of Brazil, or I guess the overseer of Brazil, or maybe the judicial branch over Brazil, to where you have to implement tariffs that are punishable on the US economy and, sorry, consumers here, because you're upset about them prosecuting the guy who did the same thing you did when you lost an election. What does that have to do with you? And MAGA, did this have to do with America first? Kevin Hassett didn't have the answer at all. So as that's going down, and we've heard nothing consistent. We've heard nothing about the way that the inflation will then be affected by these tariffs. That is until right now. Really fast. The New York Times reported this. This is new. Here's the title. Inflation accelerated in June as Trump's tariffs pushed up prices. Huh. It's crazy. Inflation accelerated in June as Trump's tariffs started to leave a bigger imprint on the economy, keeping the Federal Reserve on track to hold interest rates steady when policymakers meet next month. So, again, the battle with Jerome Powell is sifting out to be in Jerome Powell's favor as far as the inflation rate. The interest rates. Sorry. So the consumer price index rose 2.7% from a year ago, the swiftest pace since February. That's data that's been released by the Bureau of Labor Statistics that showed just today. This is slightly higher than expected and is up from an annual pace of 2.4% in May. So core inflation, which strips out volatile food and energy prices and is seen as a reliable gauge for underlying price pressures, also shifted higher. Those prices were up 2.9% from the same time last year. So we're starting to see it. And as we've seen consistently over and over and over again, these guys, similar to Kevin Hassett, were talking about how inflation is going to have nothing to do with tariffs. It's not like prices go up. I mean, prices go up a little bit, but then maybe not. Matter of fact, let me show you what some of these guys were saying. We heard it over and over and over and over again. But once the news then broke out, here's what Scott Besson, who's always been on many television shows to tout this agenda and these tariff policies as something great. But now that the inflation started, I want you guys to see how he's shifted his tone and moved those goalposts. Here we go.
But I wouldn't put too much emphasis on one number. I think it's the trend. And I think one thing that Wall Street, a lot of economists, market in general got wrong early on was that tariffs were going to cause a substantial price level rise, which just hasn't happened. But I wouldn't put
a substantial price increase, but it just hasn't happened. Substantial to who? I've noticed prices going up. I've noticed gas prices in my area have gone up 60 cents. So I'm just curious. That's significant. Just gonna let you, in case you didn't know that, that's a significant amount. But a significant amount of price increase is different for this billionaire here. That's the difference. They think that because they can handle these price increases that you can, or I'm sorry, more like because they can handle price increases and you can't, they don't give a damn. That's really the basis for it. So somehow it's now a difference and a change of amount. The price increases aren't significant enough for this guy. But still, back in June, he was touting how none of this is going to be a problem at all. Remember this?
The reality is there will either be less inventory or things at higher prices or both.
Mark, when we were here in March, you said there was going to be big inflation. There hasn't been any inflation. Actually, the inflation numbers are the best in 4 years. So why don't we stop trying to say this could happen and wait and see what does happen?
The reality is there.
Rich people that aren't affected so badly by this can wait and see what does happen when economists and folks who know how trends work and how when you implement these tariffs, how they will work. So it's not, they keep breaking this down to, are you rooting for America or are you rooting against it? I'm rooting for it because I live here and then that's going to affect my bottom line. So since we predicted and saw the way things work and told you not to do it that way because it'll work against us, it's one, just wait and see if your life is screwed up. Well, similarly with all these policies where they're dismantling the federal government, when we wait and see how the policies affect people, many times people die. Let's wait and see how many people are booted off of Medicare, Medicaid, and then how many people die. Let's wait and see before we then determine that the decision to do that would result in people's deaths. They don't care. So who is the collateral damage for us to wait and see whether or not the things are going to happen? By the way, it's Tuesday. Those things are happening. And the same guy who said wait and see said it's not good enough for me to give a damn yet. Here's another time he was talking.
The capital markets right now are looking at this and are responding. Equity markets, S&P 500, reaching all-time highs. The bond market looks like they're accepting this. In fact, maybe even welcoming this. 10-year treasuries are down. Credit spreads are tight. It looks like we're going to go to Brazil here next with Philip Patrick. But you've a little bit chop blocked the global south and their efforts to get off the dollar. Is that it? Do you agree with that? The capital markets are receiving, the more they understand about the big, beautiful bill, they like what they see?
Steve, of 35 years in the markets live in the future. And occasionally markets panic. We had this huge panic right after Liberation Day, up from, say, April 2nd to April 9th. After that, we had the fastest recovery in stock market history for a 15% drawdown. I believe it was 54 days. We'd never seen that before because a bunch of folks in New York who didn't like tariffs panicked. The market now sees through this and sees how good this is going to be for the economy. The one big beautiful bill is going to power us. And back to your point, not only did we have, by the fourth quarter of 19, did we have the high growth level, it was non-inflationary growth. So the inflation level for President Trump's first term was around 2%, right at the Federal Reserve target, and we're on our way back there. And this false narrative on the tariff inflation, that was really the dog that didn't bark.
The tariff inflation is the dog that didn't bark. Well, these types of things slowly come in. They come in different areas of the economy. They come up with different kinds of consumer products that come in. There was the spike in prices on eggs because of the avian flu, but at the same time, they fired a bunch of folks that could be helping that. These things aren't just happening in one fell swoop in just one part, in all parts of the economy at the same time, and all the consumer prices and also items that we buy. So it's those kinds of small details, and I wouldn't have known that either unless we read up on it enough, which I had to read a couple of articles to see that's how it's going to get implemented. Even this bill that he was referring to, the devastation that's going to come from that comes in phases over, like, by the end of the year, then into the next year. So to make sure you feel it directly after they pass it. If everything happens right then, they know everyone will be like, my life changed immediately right after that bill passed. Your life is slowly changing as you've seen prices slowly increase ever since April 1st, 2nd, Liberation Day started. And the whole time up into that, they kept feeding you this propaganda that nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to change. Tariffs don't do anything. Tariffs don't do anything. Well, tariffs do a little bit of something, but they don't do everything. Oh, there's not going to be a price increase on you. There's not going to be any inflation. So as it now is beginning to happen at rates that we can actually see and feel, different than just like, there's an extra 25 cents for that product that you bought, that candy bar or something. But as it then gets implemented into so many other aspects, then now you really have to deal with those costs. I can't talk about the past promises that were made without going to Howard Lutnick, who's over the top in the way that he was pushing this. This is back in March, even before they even went with it. These are the promises being made.
I mean, how much pain are we going to be willing to take in inflation if all of a sudden they hit us right back?
Remember, so you made one comment. So inflation comes from a government printing more money. Some prices can rise. This bottle of water.
It can't happen at all.
No, tariffs do not create inflation. Printing money creates inflation. You have a balanced budget. There can't be inflation. It doesn't mean one product could be more expensive and one product could be less expensive. But China, I'll give you an example. China has the highest tariffs in the world. In the world, everything gets tariffed in China, and they don't have inflation. In fact, they have deflation. India, the second highest tariffs in the world, they don't have inflation. So this concept is just people whining and complaining and not being truthful. The fact is, we need to protect America. Why does China tariff everything and we give them a free ride back here? And they subsidize The opioid production. They subsidize opioid production.
If all else fails, go to some fear tactics. But no, as he said, there's no way. There's no way these tariffs cause inflation. Weird that he says that, as it's now causing inflation. I wonder if he's going to come out and say something different. I haven't seen anything yet. There's more of Howard Lutnick. I'm sorry you guys have to deal with this guy, but I want to really drive the point home how propaganda works. The fact that we hear this happens every day, but then we're not supposed to repeat and show how much they do this every day allows them to toss in these lies and make them become reality. So I'm sorry, but you got to hear more of this guy.
Price of aluminum and steel and copper has already started to rise. That could ripple through the entire manufacturing sector and raise the level of inflation. Could it bring on a recession?
So let's start again. Let's take a step back and remember inflation, right? Inflation comes from a government printing too much money. The Biden administration having a $2 trillion deficit. You don't get inflation from having a tariff, because what a tariff says is if it's made in Europe, if it's made foreign, it might cost a little more, but that which is made in America does not cost more. This concept of how about we buy American steel, we buy American aluminum, there's U.S. steel, you know it, there's Nucor, right? There's Cleveland Cliffs. We make plenty of steel in America.
Domestic
we make plenty of
producers
steel in America. Let's strengthen that.
Domestic producers can't keep up with demand. The supply is limited, demand is strong. The price is going up.
Some foreign steel will go up for sure, but then they will build those plants in America. We will have our plant production in America is only operating at 55%.
These are all based in promises. It's going to happen. It's going to change. Yeah, sure. Prices will go up. Again, they use that as like a flippant point. Prices are going to go up. That changes people's lives. That changes what people can buy. That changes what people can do with their lives. That changes their entire outlook on how they can operate. But they just use it as a, sure, prices will go up. But you know what? In however many years, if this works out the way that we keep having these demands work out, all these companies will move operations to the United States of America to avoid these tariffs. Who knows how long that'll take? Who gives a damn? Who cares how long these prices will continue to increase while you still try and implement other strategies of getting folks here? And what if those companies don't come here? You just give them a middle finger and tell them get out of here, and then they go make these deals with other countries and loop us out of it. I had a lot more on Howard Lutnick, and I get the feeling that you guys are kind of tired of this guy. But what I do want to point out, one more point of this guy, because there's two more of this guy, of Lutnick talking about this. This is what he was saying again back in May. Remember when he kept talking about how you have to give this president a chance? They've obviously given this president a chance, but is it worth it?
Completely disagree. What you're going to see is prices are going to stay stable once this policy is done. You got to give the president a chance to run it. But over the next 3 months, this policy is going to show trade deal after trade deal, opening markets, reshoring manufacturing, and no tariff charged if you make it in America.
Okay.
Please.
It hasn't happened. Have your prices stabilized, or is inflation going up right now? Again, it's across the board. If folks who are coming out don't trust Donald Trump now on the Epstein files, and they don't trust Donald Trump on mass deportation because those numbers are changing, and they don't trust Donald Trump on security of the nation, considering the way that Pete Hegseth is running the Department of Defense. If you don't trust him on so many things, and we keep seeing all these things that you have no reason to trust him on outside of saying, well, I have to trust him because he asked me to, why would you trust him on anything? If he's incompetent on these many things, why is he competent in other areas? Especially since the reasons why he's incompetent is because he just doesn't know what he's doing, and he's doing everything to drive his own ego and bottom line up for him and his rich friends that paid him to do so. So that golden age that they're talking about is just a price tag for consumers here. It's a matter of whether or not we're going to continue to accept that garbage line of reasoning. Did you guys think we weren't going to talk about Jeffrey Epstein today? I have to, because this is how these things progress. Everything moved on from Donald Trump denying that there's an Epstein file at all, along with Pam Bondi, to that rift between Bongino and her that I guess is still happening. He apparently did show back up to work on Monday. But ever since then, there's some House Democrats that decided to take this in their own hands and put people on record to find out where they stand on whether or not they should release these files. You won't be surprised of the outcome.
Madam Chair, the Epstein files concern issues of abuse of women and abuse of children. You know, as the chair of the Democratic Women's Caucus, you often see me raising issues of we need to address this. And not only that, but Republicans and the MAGA world have said they want to know about this. Your constituents want to know. So the question is, why are they not just releasing them? And I think it's a simple thing to do. And you're going to be asked to vote whether you require the release. That's going to be a simple vote. Will you require the release? Is there anything that needs to be hidden? If there isn't, then just release the files. Silence those who would question it. So every Republican on this committee should be able to easily vote yes. That is the vote you will be making as to whether it should go forward to the floor for that vote. So you, with your vote, will be preventing even the consideration of the release of the Epstein files. You will be voting against the release of the Epstein files. You have the power. Let's see how.
Hearing none, the question's on the amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The amendment's not
Madam
agreed
Chair, I'm
to.
kind of shocked by that. I will ask for a roll call.
So the Rules Committee, I believe, there at the House decided to block the potential full House vote or releasing the Epstein files. They voted there with a verbal vote, which then, of course, was assumed to be, yeah, we're totally going to be against this. It's actually embarrassing for them to even say that. Even if they had won that, you would think that that chairperson would be like, yeah, actually, maybe we should get a roll call vote because that looks really bad for us. Ro Khanna, I think, is one of the folks who introduced that, and he went on TV to talk about what happened in that small committee session.
Well, it's very disappointing. I had a very simple amendment that the full Epstein files should be released. It went for a vote to the House Rules Committee. Jim McGovern, who is the ranking member for House Democrats, made sure that all 4 Democrats voted for the release. Ralph Norman, a Republican, actually joined with the Democrats, saying that there should be a vote on the full release. Chip Roy didn't show up for the vote, but 7 other Republicans blocked it. So as of now, there is going to be no vote tomorrow, up or down vote on whether the Epstein file should be released. And what the Democrats are saying is we want to make sure that we get full justice here, that we get full transparency. And this may have been the first attempt that was blocked, but I'll tell you, it's not going to be the last attempt. We already have Representative Vesey, who has a resolution. Leader Jeffries is saying that we're going to push for transparency here. And we can keep introducing these kind of amendments every week, every month, to force the Republicans to demand the release. And this is something that many Republicans believe should happen, as was evidenced by Ralph Norman's vote.
So there's Ro Khanna. He introduced that they then blocked from going to the full House vote. And he says they're going to continue to introduce this. I hope they do. That's where the action needs to be. This needs to be an ongoing conversation with legislators. It doesn't have to just be within the news and the media, because we know how quickly folks move on to the next scandal or the next story or the next conflict that all goes on. So as long as they continue to keep the pressure on them for the sake of actually getting to the end of this rather than for political purposes, because I'm telling you, I have this feeling that now as Democrats are making this a big issue, finally. I mean, they did before. I'm not going to act like they didn't say anything before. But as this now becomes front and center because of the stark reality to the way this administration is handling this whole thing, I hope this doesn't turn into some kind of like, now that you guys know I asked for another vote, you can chip in $1 or $2 at my campaign site. Please don't do that. It's very like it makes it super artificial, and it turns it into this thing where we're only doing this so we can raise money and maybe win some elections. If you just do the right thing and go forward with this earnestly And with principle, you'll get those votes. You'll get that support. You don't have to turn everything into some kind of fundraising thing. And that's what I'm concerned they may end up doing if they continue to go down this road of pushing for it, or they may just not. We'll see. It's very frustrating. There's one MAGA guy that's decided not to go down this road anymore, though. And it's a little surprising, I got to be honest.
Honestly, I'm done talking about Epstein for the time being. I'm going to trust my friends in the administration. I'm going to trust my friends in the government to do what needs to be done, solve it, balls in their hands. I've said plenty this last weekend. So if you guys want to see my commentary on it, that's fine. Honestly, I'm done talking about.
Charlie Kirk is done talking about Epstein. Charlie Kirk just had Turning Points USA event, Student Action Summit over the weekend. All the biggest names show up. Everybody stands in front of the crowd and tells young Republicans how to think and the way to be. And what they told them in response was, we want to see Epstein files. We want to understand why you're covering the whole thing up. And then, of course, because he's standing in front of his folks, Charlie Kirk has to then continue to say, this is crazy. You're right, man. Pam Bondi has to go down. And let's stop it right there at Pam Bondi to go down. But now Charlie Kirk is willing to trust his friends in government. I want you guys to flip that scenario in your head and imagine what happens with Republican circles when any Democrat says, I'm going to trust my friends in the executive branch with Joe Biden in charge. I'm going to trust that Joe Biden doesn't have any cognitive abilities slowing down. I'm going to trust that when he froze on that debate stage that nothing was wrong. Bro, I know people said that and that was crazy. So it's just as crazy, except this has to do with this huge high roller elitist sex trafficking ring with underage girls that went on that he no longer wants to talk about. Who whispered in Charlie Kirk's ear and told him to shut the fuck up about this? Who was it? Because as he said, I've said a lot about this. I hope you don't continue to think I mean that. But this is some of the things he and Megyn Kelly were talking about before he was told to shut up.
Do you think there's any intel community involvement in this?
I wouldn't be surprised one bit. I am convinced, based on my own sources and my own reporting on this story, he wasn't one of ours.
So he wasn't American, which leads basically three options: MI6, Saudi, or Mossad.
Yep.
Which one would you choose?
I guess Mossad, given his connection to Ghislaine Maxwell.
So what does that mean?
Well, I mean, it's possible that that's the reason everything's getting buried, that there is some treasure trove and it's getting buried because...
How many people here believe that? Raise your hand. Okay, it's about half the hands think that it's being buried because of an Israeli thing.
It could be. I really don't know.
And I have no evidence to suggest that.
No, me neither. I did think it was very odd how, look, half of you raised your hands because you've heard that theory, you've heard it debated, you have questions, but the one time Pam Bondi was asked a question about this at the cabinet meeting on Monday, she was like, and as for whether he was an agent, that I don't know. I haven't looked into that. I'll get back to you. You haven't looked into it? What do you mean? So that was kind of a fishy answer.
And Megan, remember Alexander Acosta in 2007, he said he was told to treat Epstein carefully because he was an intel asset. That was one of Trump's cabinet secretaries who was literally a U.S. attorney 3 hours from here in Florida. He said that himself.
Well, and let me tell you the consequences of that. His subpoena, his search warrant on Jeffrey Epstein's residence was very narrow. It was not the kind of like, let's get everything. Let's see everything inside this guy's, dressers and so on. It was very, very narrowly tailored. And to this day, that's what the FBI is stuck with. So it really is possible that Dan and Cash got in there and...
It's possible that there's all these other offshoots. Epstein works for a foreign intelligence agency and got dirt on all these people. Tucker Carlson said the same thing at the same event over the weekend. They both went after Pam Bondi again, but they all made sure not to go after the president who's controlling Pam Bondi. They say all kinds of stuff, but suddenly it's tight-lipped and let's not talk about it. Let's trust the federal. A Republican said, let's trust the federal government. I'm not going to go to the 2.5 minutes worth of MAGA influencers that are still raging over this, by the way, because they are still raging over it. But I want to show you guys one other person that was also raging about this over the weekend. This is Laura Ingraham, because she's also switched her tune on the way that she was talking about this. But first, watch this.
All this good stuff is happening. There is a lot, and we're not gonna like everything. There's a lot that's kind of bubbling under the surface, and I know you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, we do.
So I'm going to ask a few questions to all of you. How many of you are satisfied? You can clap. Satisfied with the results of the Epstein investigation? Clap.
That's booing.
Okay, I told you to clap. You guys aren't listening. I'm not going to grade you on a curve. So I was going to get to that. How many of you are not satisfied with the results of the investigation? It looks like it's going to be, and now this is like the who's going to be off the island first, right? This is like who's going to be voted off the island first. And I don't know what to believe on that. I've been around Washington long enough to know a lot of these infighting stories. A lot of them are overblown, and you know, all these people are friends of mine. So I'm always I want to get the family back together because Lord knows we have enough on the outside coming at us. But Pam Bondi and of course Stan Bongino, who I adore both of them. I just want to say that for the record. But you know, there's some family disagreement going on there. But I think the one thing we all have to certainly agree on is that clarity of presentation and clear expectations have to be set. So we need
that clarity of expectation. Sounds like a veiled shot again at Pam Bondi. It's about her and not the rest of this. But again, pay attention. She got the applause lines from them. They booed when she asked for applause if you're okay with this. So she knows where they stand. And it sounds like she decided to agree with where they stood. That is all the way up until she went on TV probably the same night. Or, I'm sorry, this is probably Monday night. She decided to go on TV. And again, just like Charlie Kirk, the flip was like severe.
Now, as conservative influencers were eating their own about Epstein, the president was stealing the show on the 1-year anniversary of the day he almost lost his life. He made a triumphant appearance at a global sporting event. At the World Cup FIFA final, Trump basked in the moment. Meanwhile, Democrats keep shooting in their own goal, stumbling from one embarrassment to the next.
Stumbling from one embarrassment to the next. They're not in power. They're not affecting policy. But all the bumbles and stumbles that happen have to be coming from this administration. But did you see what she said at the beginning there? She's like, you know, so as MAGA conservatives eat their own over Epstein, Donald Trump is doing great things by interrupting this celebration at the FIFA Club World Cup final. So she uses that to I guess, springboard off of how MAGA needs to shush and stop with talking about this whole Epstein thing. And look at your president being so presidential by being a complete pariah and a wart on the ass of these folks who are celebrating an actual accomplishment for the hard work that they did. This guy's going to stand there and put his face in the middle of it. I'm glad she brought that up because that brings me to the last bunch of clips that I want to run for you guys. Did you guys hear about this FIFA Cup tournament? I heard about it and I was like, yeah, sure. Donald Trump stood up there and presented the trophy and laughed. But you know what? I didn't know the depths of how ridiculous this was. People did talk about him getting booed. So let's probably just start there. He did get booed as he does at other events, the way he does it in the American, club sport events, the NFL, things like that. I don't think he showed up at any NBA games. But this is Donald Trump showing up. I think it was at MetLife Stadium. So it was in Jersey, but this is the FIFA Club World Cup. And he walked out to, be the guy. If you can hear that beginning there again, it's boo. So these things happen to presidents, and I'm not sure how many like senators and representatives show up and get such a like a spotlight put on them. But definitely every time this guy shows up to events, there's this overhang of booing, and then it's a good thing that music plays with a loud humming tone to make sure it drowns out enough of it as possible. There were other shots of the response he got. A little explicit. You can't show tons of middle fingers being tossed up at the camera on this channel. So that was some of the other responses from folks that were there, which again, he doesn't give a damn about, just like he didn't give a damn about the celebration that was supposed to take place with the guys who won the trophy. The president of FIFA had to rush his ass back and away from the rest of the folks. As you can see, the players were standing there waiting for him to get the hell out of the way and trying to figure out, why are you still here? You're just this diplomat representative that's supposed to walk up, hand us our trophy, and get out of the way, bro. Are you still here? We're waiting to celebrate. But because he has to be the center of attention, he decided to stay there up until the point when he was then ushered back. I want to show you guys a close up. Of this of one of the I think it's the captain of the team himself was looking at him, trying to figure out when this guy is gonna leave. I want to get his name before we go to it. I just said his name a minute ago. So the guy in the middle that's holding the trophy, if you can look closely at the some lip readers have pointed out, and I'm not even a lip reader, but I can see what he said to watch it again. Now, again, I'm not an expert, but the looks like he said, "Are you gonna leave? Are you gonna leave?" Like, this is normal. Like, yeah, you guys in the suits come up and hand us this, and then you get out of the way. Why are you still here? And then some of the folks behind him, they thought it was pretty amusing. They're like, this guy won't leave. Okay, this is funny. And they went on about it. Except there's details behind how this whole thing went down. It steals the show, and it steals what people accomplished. I know some people may see this as a very small thing. It's just sports. I get all that stuff too, but for some reason, the guy, it's an insight into the way he thinks. Everything in the world is supposed to circle and center him in that world. All the way up to this. How much FIFA club football does this guy talk about? How much does he actually care about it? What he wants is the spotlight and to look like he's this guy that's beloved all across the world, when in fact he gets booed everywhere that he goes. So as you saw him jump up there, but this is what people were seeing. Viewers studying footage initially believed, let's show you guys what I'm reading. Viewers studying this footage initially believed they had spotted Palmer behind Trump asking James, what's he doing? James then seemingly asked the president, are you going to leave? So that's the player that was trying to get him the hell out of there. But he wouldn't get out of there. Following some more analysis, some lip reading expert Jacques Press told the Telegraph Sport that Palmer shouted, mate, wait, just wait. And James told Trump and Sanchez at the same time, can I lift? Like, you're not going to leave. So, I mean, I'm waiting. This is going to begin to get awkward. Can I lift the trophy yet? And then he stood there and then, almost got mauled as they were jumping around. So then he then lifted the trophy and he stayed on the stage clapping and smiling and do all the stuff that he would do. They won the game quite decisively, the match quite decisively, and celebrated. There's just one more problem with that celebration. Here's this. Apparently, Trump decided to keep that big ass gold trophy because he likes it gold. He's like Goldfinger, gold member. He kept the World Cup trophy for himself, and then FIFA made a replica for the team to actually keep. Now, this story has been circulating too, and is basically like he bullied away and took the actual original trophy that he did nothing to, nothing of any kind of accomplishment to receive, but then he kept it stashed apparently in the Oval Office somewhere in the White House. But this is the thing. I guess this is where it's a little bit of grace for dude, because he walks in and does whatever he wants, and then people like the head of FIFA decided to go ahead and give him all of this to himself. So it's been revealed that the intricate prize hoisted by the London club's captain, Reece James, as one in the middle, was a replica because the president of football's governing body, FIFA, let Trump use the original as an ornament in the Oval Office. So the trophy was created in collaboration with Tiffany & Company, which Trump loves, and it features a central disc with all these rotating rings. It's 24 karat gold plate finish, and it's thought to have cost around $230,000 to make. So if FIFA does let him keep that original main trophy that was made for the team, it's likely to end up in the National Archives. More things that Donald Trump will say that he accomplished. This is what the FIFA president told him. They said, could you hold this trophy for a little while? We put it in the Oval Office, and then I said, this is what Trump was talking about, when are you going to pick up the trophy? And that president, whose name is Gianni Infantino, said, we're never going to pick it up. You can have it forever in the Oval Office. So Trump explained that exchange back and forth, which normally I would say he's probably lying about that. He probably said, can I keep it? It'd be great for our relations if I can keep it, and probably bullied his way into it, but probably not. Because this same guy, Gianni Infantino, has said that he wants to, hold on. Yeah, this same guy, Giovanni Infantino, has said he wants to ingratiate himself, since FIFA is going to be held, in North American territories, that he wants to make sure that the president of the United States is buttered up enough to make it as successful as possible. Because as we know, he's a transactional president. If you give him stuff, he's going to treat you better than he will if you didn't give him stuff. We've seen it with the Qatari airplane. We've seen it with folks talking about how they're going to create a golf course in their country for him because they want to butter him up. It's been the scouting report on Donald Trump ever since he came down the escalator. You butter him up, he does whatever you want. He doesn't even think about it because it's like, they like me. They like how much of an absolute ass I am, and they love me. So the World Cup president decided to give him the original trophy. I don't know if the replica is not going to be worth $230,000, but the $230,000 one is apparently going to stay in the Oval Office. Good job. Here's a picture of it. It's pretty big. Here, let's show you that picture. Can we get a full screen? It's big. So apparently when they came into the Oval Office and hung out with him, they decided to keep it there instead. Good job. That's all I'm talking about today. I'm curious. I haven't seen y'all's response to this. Maybe some footballers know more about this, because I think I've said this pretty clearly. I don't watch much soccer. I may watch it whenever the World Cup comes around and it gets fun and all the places are filled up and everybody's talking about stuff. But in this particular case, this is just, our president doing what he does, stepping in again. We'll see if this happens with the real World Cup trophy as well, too. This you don't like my music says. I like your name. You don't like my music says. Will this mean that Trump gets to keep the real World Cup too? Who knows? I assume so. The replica, we'll see how much that costs. But again, it's just an embarrassing moment for everyone. Look at that, you guys. I got 10 minutes left, and I'm still I'm out of things to go on about. So I'm glad you guys showed up again. Shoot me some thoughts about Love Island, because there's this video I just saw. I could run it right now since we have a few minutes, but there's this video that I did see about one of the contestants being kicked off for her previous social media posts, and I think that's so interesting. So again, you don't have to be a fan of the raunchy show that has 20 somethings making out at every 5-minute interval as possible, but that does have a lot of mind games that the producers and then the whole nature of the show plays. And lately, like again, like years ago when I watched it, lately the influence of social media and so many people watching it in real-time reactions, that these folks who are isolated in this place, that don't have access to their phones or the internet for however many weeks, they just sit back and wonder what people think of them. And I'm telling you, I have thoughts about how that could affect society, and specifically the mental health of these young folks who obviously are looking for nothing else but some kind of validation and, I guess, love. I don't I don't really think that that's always the case on these shows. But, you know, I'm curious. I think it might have an old folks audience here that you guys might not really give a damn about. But anyways, check it out. I'll show you guys later. We'll probably do it tomorrow because I think it's interesting. So be forewarned if you're looking for more Epstein talk and economy talk. We're talking Love Island tomorrow. Not the show, just the response. Thanks you guys for showing up again. John's up next. He's got 9 minutes before he's on. Tell him I said, hey, don't let the whole gap between now and then fool you. You still come in with a big watch party shout out. Let's flood that chat and make sure it all goes down the right way. We'll see you guys tomorrow on a Wednesday. Have fun. Bye.